All right, so welcome. What I want to talk to you today about is the desktop bridge. I've been using this tool for a little while. Been working with companies up in the DC area. They've used this tool, and this is a pretty interesting tool or feature that allows us to take existing applications that we've invested a lot of development effort into, we've invested a lot of IP and knowledge into, and bring it forward into the future, whether we want to use new libraries. Like, how many of you have ever been to a developer demo at Ignite or Build, and they're like, here's notifications, or here's some cool feature. You're like, I'm on Windows Forms. I can't use that. Anybody ever felt like that? I know I have. Like, got it. Or they do a web feature, you're like, I'm on SharePoint, I can't really do that just yet. Or they got a desktop feature, I'm on WPF, and I love WPF, don't get me wrong, but I can't use that one feature just yet. It allows us to use new features, or maybe we want to distribute our application a different way, distribute it in a package, in a controlled package sandbox environment, as opposed to actually having MSI install the software in a traditional manner. The desktop bridge gives us a lot of options here. So that was my Twitter handle. You'll see it again at the end. Essentially today, we have millions of desktop solutions, and these solutions have some challenges. How many people have ever created an installer project in Visual Studio? Anybody? Create an installer project in Visual Studio? How many people enjoy creating an installer project in Visual Studio? Okay, I don't see any hands left. There's nothing wrong with installers, it's just tough, right? It's tough to get right. It's easy to create an installer project. It's very difficult to get all the settings right, get everything just right, and then make sure it installs correctly in every environment. Then we got to chain installers. Users are afraid of installers. As they get more and more apps on their phone, as they get more and more apps through various stores, and I'm not even just talking about Windows stores, any app store, all of a sudden installers starting to get this negative connotation associated with it. So what do we do in a large organization? We install it using group policy or something like that. Other users don't have to double click and install anything. If we distribute some software, maybe we give them a statement about trust and everything, but users are still afraid of chain installers. How do we keep these applications up to date? Once the user installs the application, do we really have to call them and say, hey, we got version 4.3. Okay, you're a smart development team, you go in, you say, maybe we'll build some logic into our software to let the user know, you're on a really old version, we're sick of supporting you, please update. But that's a problem. And then uninstalling. You think creating an installer is difficult? Wait till you have to create an uninstaller and actually figure out how to reverse everything and leave no artifacts. Even though we all say we leave nothing behind, right? It's kind of like going to the forest and going hiking, leave no trace. Well, we don't really do that with software. We leave a lot of traces. Anybody here looked at the registry lately? Yeah, I'm sorry too. But so these are challenges we're experiencing today. And if you're building stuff, I've already talked about some of these problems. Modernization, DLL, I've talked about some of these issues already. And what I really want to get to is the Universal Windows Platform. So you've heard about it. You've seen slides about it. Essentially, it's just one application running on multiple environments. A lot of things built in, security built in, configuration, management, updating application. You've seen the demos. You've seen people say, hey, I'm building a Windows Store app. I have a new version. The user gets notified via the App Store that the version is out of date. So it's great. But if I have an existing application, all of a sudden I see this great ecosystem that I can't use, right? And that's what the desktop bridge is trying to solve. We're trying to get you with your existing applications into this great ecosystem. And I'm going through these slides fast because I want to get to the demo, right? So that's what the desktop bridge is all about. We can take existing desktop solutions and convert them into packages that can be deployed via the Windows Store, or even if you don't care about the Windows Store, maybe you want to sideload them on machines. You got the AppX. So if you want to deploy it just in your enterprise, you get the benefits of that clean install experience, that clean uninstall experience. When the user goes right-click on your icon and the start menu says uninstall, it just removes it. There's no, the uninstaller, sure you want to keep this or any of that. This is all built into the desktop bridge. You want to distribute your application, you can distribute it via the Windows Store, via other distribution channels. Maybe let's say, a really good example I like to give is, let's say you have a great accounting application and use it internally. And somebody's boss came up with this idea before. Hey, what if we sold it to other companies in our same sector, right? And you're like, oh, I really don't want to deal with licensing, managing it, creating installers and stuff. It works here, and it just works here. Well, here we can package it up sell it in the Windows Store for Business, and they got to install or uninstaller, we don't have to worry about licensing. That's built into the Windows Store. We can do that through there. And then you can migrate at your own pace. Now that it's AppX, or now that it's a UWP application, if you want to start adding UWP features, and this is the part that I love the most, if you want to start adding UWP features, you can do it slowly. So you can take an existing WinForms WPF app, and you can start adding in XAML screens. Maybe you really like XAML, but you can't do it because your application doesn't support XAML. You can start adding XAML screens one at a time. Maybe you want to implement notifications, but you're not quite ready to implement background tasks. You can implement notifications. You can pick and choose which features you want to implement and migrate at a pace that makes sense to your organization. With the goal eventually at the finish line being that, oh, we have a fully migrated application that's on the UWP platform, XAML, maybe C#, all throughout. We want to get there, but I mean, anybody here is 100% sure if you go to your boss today, they'll let you rewrite every application using UWP, no questions asked, no budget issues whatsoever, right? No? But they might let you do a little bit at a time, proof of concept, maybe add a couple features, get users in your organization excited. Your CTO saying, hey, now that they've seen a couple features, all of a sudden your archaic desktop application, which I've had a lot of those I've built, my archaic desktop application now has notifications. You say, oh, that's pretty cool. Can the tile update, or maybe, can we do background tasks and stuff like that? And as we go, we add more and more features and we get where we want to go. So we essentially start with an existing Win32 application, desktop process, you got an installer, everything you're used to, and essentially we want to convert that. So immediately, we get the benefit of that AppX package, a modern installer. If we want to update it, we can seamlessly update it by pushing out new versions, whether we deploy it in the Windows Store for Business, or even just within our enterprise. We get that seamless update experience. If we want to uninstall it, it's completely clean. It completely uninstalls, and it still uses its own code. Before I show you the demo, the real secret here is that the application is running in a sandbox. The application doesn't know that it's wrapped up in UWP sandbox. We emulate a lot of really cool things. So you actually go in and you look, you'll see that it simulates running an installer. It figures out what registry entries are edited, where your application installer is putting files, and then it simulates a file system, simulates a registry. So when the application starts up, it's like, I'm installing stuff in the registry, I'm installing files in the file system. The application doesn't know. It's being tricked. It's just installing stuff in a virtual file system, installing stuff to a virtual registry. And then when the application is ready to uninstall, we get rid of the virtual file system, virtual registry. We're done. Run install. Go ahead. It's not quite AppV. It's actually a little bit lower level than that. It's essentially what it does is using Windows containers. It sets up a Windows instance so you actually have a container image. And then it installs the application. It actually monitors that instance to figure out what changed. So it looks at the registry, look at the file system. It's just trying to figure out what changed, the delta. Then it creates an AppX package with a virtualized file system, virtualized registry, and other virtualized components. Yeah, it's very similar, yes. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar, yeah. So let's look at it. Anybody prefer slides? All right. So I have on my desktop a little app package or application installer for, anybody remember Open Live Writer? Nobody? Please? No? Okay, all right. So Open Live Writer here is just a little tool to write blog posts, things like that, and you can publish it to wherever you want. It's just a regular Win32 application. If I double click it, it'll install it, it's an exe, it's an installer, everything we're used to. So essentially what I need to do is two things. The first thing I need to do is I need to actually convert this into an AppX package. And again, this is only a 20-minute session, so I'll be very brief in this, but essentially there's a tool. You can install it from the Windows Store, so I'll go to Store, called the Desktop App Converter. Oh, my mouse is on mind of its own today. Oh, there we go. Desktop App Converter. You can install it from the Windows Store. When you launch it, it opens a command line. And you have the Desktop App Converter tool. Now, in this App Converter tool, you can run a command. And can y'all see that text? Or, okay, all right. So it's running an installer. It says, okay, where is the installer? Open Live Writer setup.exe. What's the arguments? I say install it silently. Because if I don't pass in the silent install argument, Open Live Writer is going to show you why. It's going to fail, right? Destination, where do I want my app package? I say just put it back in the app package folder. What's the name of this AppX package? Well, OLW UWP, that's what I'm going to call it. Needs publisher information, version. Do you want to make it an Apex? Do I want to be verbose? App executable, openlivewriter.exe. It tells it when it's installed what the executable is. Go ahead. Can you repeat that one more time? I apologize.
If the installer does not support the silent switch, what can we do?
So it's kind of like unintended install. So whatever you do to install an unintended manner, where if it doesn't support silent switch, you're not going to be able to package it up automatically like this. Can you say that one more time? Yeah, well, this is an automated tool. There are manual ways to package it up if it doesn't support a silent install. But if it does support some type of silent install, that's the much easiest way to go. But there's documentation available that actually, and I've done this once, and I much prefer this. But I've done it once. You can actually package it up if it's not a silent install. So I want to show you what it does. I'm going to hit enter. And it's actually spinning up a container. Yay, enabling Windows optional feature. It's running that container. It's actually, so it's Windows. And it's going to install this right there in that container. And it's actually going to observe what happens. So you see here, whoa, that's super fast. So set up the environment. It's running the installer now. It's noticing that the installer is putting files in weird places. So it's going to virtualize those locations. So when we go into Sandbox, it's actually not putting it like in the C drive, program files drive. It's actually putting it in app data local. And you see how it's actually picking up all the different things the installer is doing so that it knows what it needs to virtualize and how to replicate this. So, I mean, to be very mean, it's tricking the installer. So it's in there, hey, I need to fake this, and I need to fake that, and I need to fake this. Sorry, virtualize. I need to virtualize this, virtualize that. But that's all it's really doing. It's not really complex. It's not some magic black box. And if you, I always, even if I'm on projects with clients, I run it with a verbose tag because I want people to see, you know, what are we doing? You see, boom, all these different things pop up. So if I go back here, my OLWWP folder, I have now an Apex package. I double click it. The machine is running the regular UWP application install experience you've seen from many other UWP applications. Oh, by the way, these Apex packages, you can get Apex packages for applications in the store. You can get them from everywhere. This is a way to allow you to install or sideload a universal Windows application without having to run through the store, that Apex package format. Now, I told you it's 2 steps. Yeah, go ahead. You took all my thunder away. Yeah, they hear. All right, everybody cover your ears. All right, so we're going to, I told you it's 2 steps. I promised 2 steps. I'm going to try and install. Oh, I didn't sign it. It's not going to allow you to install an unsigned package. Are you crazy? So it needs me to sign it. Luckily, I have the super secret, super duper certificate for Open Live Writer. Don't tell anybody I have this, right? And I just run Sign Tool. Everybody's seen Sign Tool before. By the way, you have Visual Studio 2017. It's not obvious, but you have to actually go and enable the Windows 10 SDK and do a click once deployment tools to get Sign Tool. 2015, I think it was part of the default install. So just a heads up, if you try to use the Sign Tool, you don't see it. That's what's going on. Can y'all tell that happened to me in the hotel? All right, signed my Apex package. Oh, actually, I don't. Oh, I didn't close this. Maybe it'll work. Oh, there we go. So it's installing an application. So Open Live Writer is running just like normal. If I launch it, I'll see the Open Live Writer configuration experience. So Open Live Writer doesn't know it's packaged as a UWP package. It doesn't know that we're using the desktop bridge. As far as Open Live Writer knows, it's just regular installed on the machine. So again, it's a package format. So now if I want to distribute this Apex package, Windows Store for Business, Windows Store, if I want to distribute my enterprise, if I want to use many of the management tools available to push this application out, I can use these modern tools. Let's say this Open Live Writer, let's all imagine we're on the dev team for Open Live Writer, right? And we want to take this application, we want to update it. We don't have to call everybody or go in and do some management to deploy a new version application. All we have to do is whatever distribution mechanism we have, version it up one more time, push a new version out. The users in their regular Windows experience that they already know are going to get a notification that a new version is available. If you're an enterprise, obviously you can automate that so the user don't even get the notification, they just get the new version. So all this stuff you see around UWP that you say, I wish I had, we now have it. That's all I took right there. All right, go ahead. Two answers to that question. If you're using a regular store, it's going to give the user the experience they expect. So the users expect that the app store is going to notify them that there's an update available. If they configured it so it automatically updates, it'll automatically update. Some users configure or disable automatic updates so they'll get the notification update. If it's an enterprise, you can definitely just make it so that it just automatically rolls the update, decide when you want to push out and everything. So all the tools you use for regular UWP apps, available here. You had a question? Yeah, so two answers there too. If you just do everything out of the box, it'll just do kind of the whole uninstall, reinstall experience. You can configure it, so it just keeps the files in place and just do a regular update. That's super easy to configure. It's right in the documentation on how to do that, and that's maybe, it's about a year since I've done this. Most of the time, I keep things encapsulated. I do a lot of cloud applications, so I try to avoid storing things on a local file system. It's kind of as you move to UWP, you want to avoid it as much as possible. So I'll keep the local folder and stuff like that. That'll stay around, and I keep those settings there. But any like virtualized settings, there's an extra step involved. Make sure those stick around through the update step. So it's not a complex thing at all. But it's mentioned in documentation. All right, I want to show you all one more thing that I think is really interesting. How much time I have? Oh. Sorry. Oh. All right. All right, I still got 5 minutes. All right. So I showed you what I think is a really interesting part, but anybody here is a developer, write code for a living? I'm going to blow your mind. This is the part when I first saw the Windows team do it that I said, wow, this is pretty crazy. But packaging is one thing. But remember I said you could actually start to migrate the applications piece by piece as you really want to go. That's where things start to get interesting. And since I only have 5 minutes left, we're going to skip slides. Don't you love when we skip slides? And we're going to add UWP APIs to an existing application. This is where things start to get a little crazy. So I'm going to open up Visual Studio 2017. Yeah, it launches so fast now. Back in the day, you used to have to keep it open. Now it launches fast. I open it. I've used this as a text editor before. So yeah, that's your measure of how fast the IDE is if you use it to type in the text node. All right, go ahead.
What's your success ratio for merchant?
So I haven't converted 100 apps. But out of the 10 to 15 projects I've done around this, already, client engagements tend to be like 2 to 3 months. So it's 10 to 15 engagements I've done on this. I've had 2 scenarios where we didn't start off with the automatic conversion. My workflow as a consultant, what I've done is we usually start with the automatic conversion. We get the buy-in on the whole uninstallation experience. The enterprise gets really excited about how easier it is to manage it. Then we go back and we do this where we actually add UWP libraries and start building the UWP application within Visual Studio. So this is usually the second phase. And I think I've only ever had like a really bad conversion issue where I had to call the Windows team and get help on it, maybe twice. And this was actually much earlier in preview when there was stuff you just had to know. It's a lot easier now because everything is documented super well. The documentation site is maybe too much detail. It's because they just take every question they get and just bloop right on the documentation website. So most of the time, if you run into a conversion issue, it's on the documentation website. And both issues I ran into are actually listed as under the FAQ or common things you'll run into. All right, so I have a WPF application here. I've actually started adding UWP libraries like Push Notification Channel Manager. And in my view model, I love MVVM. Anybody else love MVVM? In my view model, I wanted to use XML document to create a tile notification so that I can use the tile features in Windows. And I believe I did one other. Let me look at my bookmarks. App data cache. Is that up here? With my luck, I can never find anything. And the other thing I'm doing is I want to use environment folder to actually store stuff that's normally not legal when I'm doing UWP. So three things happening here. Essentially, I want this conversion process to actually take these files that are put in places that UWP doesn't normally put files. So I'm hoping the desktop bridge virtualizes that. That's one step. And then I want to bring in UWP libraries like push notifications, tile updates. And you start to think about, well, what could I do if I had background tasks and I didn't have to stand up service instances? I could just, in my application, define background tasks and run them. We can take advantage of that feature. So the way we do this is actually, this is going to be so simple, you're going to kind of be frustrated that you didn't know you could do this. If you have the Windows 10 SDK, add reference. A couple people are already like, you can do this. I already have them here, but I'm going to show you where they are. And I take notes because I never memorize these folder locations. I actually have this on a sticky note in my office. So x86, C program files, x86 should be Windows kits. We're going to go 10. And for the first thing I'm going to get is under union metadata, I'm going to go to facade. Now windows.winmd. Double click that, hit OK. I have now referenced the UWP Windows namespace in a WPF application. There's also other facades available. So the other facades, I always have my cheat sheet. Anybody want my cheat sheet, right? The other facades are available. Again, I have them in my recents, but I'm going to show you where they are. We're going to go back to, I'm going to go back to program files. Windows kits 10. For this one is under references, or Windows kits 10 references. There's SDK version, and you see all these different namespaces available to me. So I want Windows Foundation Universal API contract and the Foundation contract. So Windows Foundation Universal API contract. Now I'll go back up. Windows Foundation contract. Hit OK. And that's it. All those namespaces that we were talking about earlier. XML note list, tile notification, push notification channel manager, they're now valid references. So I just referenced UWP libraries in the WPF application. By the way, this works for WinForms too. This also works for C++ applications. So now, if I want to create a XAML screen and have you click a button in WinForms to open a XAML screen and author all my new screens using the latest and greatest, I can do that. They live side by side. And for all the classic technology, all it's doing is using these facades to route it to the appropriate UWP command. So basically, it's using facades to kind of set up this piping and give you time to update the rest of the application as it makes sense. This ringer is yelling at me, hey, you're done, you're out of time. Get out of there, right? So continue the migration after this. You can keep adding UWP APIs. I just showed you the facade folder. You saw all those APIs available, namespaces available to you. Keep adding them. You can take advantage of all those services we talked about. I think background tasks, I forgot to talk about triggers. You can take advantage of that. And take your time gradually migrating your UI as you train people on your team, as they want to start picking up XAML, because it's not, especially I was at a shop that all did WinForms. We had to teach developers, okay, here's how XAML works, here MVVM works. It takes time. It's not a night and day process. As we teach people, they bring in new features. Eventually, we'll get to a new application. And you've seen applications using this technology in the marketplace already. Anybody here ever use Evernote? One, all right, 2 people, 3, yes. All right, Evernote did exactly this. They took their time, they migrated feature by feature. Notice Evernote was in the Windows Store very early. Well, they didn't have a UWP app very early. They just used the desktop bridge. They brought their existing Win32 application that they already spent a lot of money building, and they started adding features in. They added live tiles as it made sense. They added push notifications as they made sense. And then one day, everything was done. And they just said, oh, we just happen to have a UWP app now. So we were able to bring it forward. So convert your existing applications, bring in those UWP APIs. We have links here. The slides are already in the app, so you can go to the Ignite app, download these slides, or after the conference, download these slides. Lots of links in here where you can go start looking at this stuff. Thank y'all so much. I went over by like 5 minutes. I feel horrible. But thank y'all so much for coming down. And I'm going to hang around for like another couple minutes if anybody has any questions. And that's my Twitter handle. That's my email. Feel free to contact me if you got any questions.